Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
You got Luke.
Luke, we're continuing our series on great inventors, and somehow this one has slipped through the
I
cracks.
don't know how this one slipped.
Me neither.
It
We say that all the time,
It
though.
bothers me that this one slipped.
This is Mr. Thomas Alva Edison.
What's up with that middle name? I saw that. Alva?
Yeah, poor Tommy, right?
Yeah, good old T-Bone. My guess is he got beat up a lot as a kid.
Fun fact about him getting beat up as a kid.
Oh, he did. I was joking, which I shouldn't joke because bullying is not nice.
We do not condone bullying.
We don't condone that for sure.
Luke bullies me a lot, but it's with love, so it's okay.
Yes.
Fun fact, though, Thomas Alva Edison actually was known as Alva until his second marriage. So he went by Alva all that time. Yeah. Which just seems like terrible decision making.
Fun fact, I don't have a middle name, James.
You lie.
No, I don't. If you look at my birth certificate, my first name is a double first name. I never told you this. So
I don't know what that means.
My first name is Luke John.
You're Luke John?
I'm a double first name. And the only person that calls at me is my mother when she's mad at me. Luke John.
Not anymore.
No middle name, Mahelsik. So just putting that out there.
No.
I mean, everything I sign and everything I do John as my middle name. But like, if you look at my birth certificate, there's nothing on the middle name. It's Luke John.
Are you serious?
Yes.
How have I not known this for all of this time, Luke?
I've been lying. I've been living a lie with you, James.
Oh my goodness. And now all of our listeners know the truth as well. Luke John. That is amazing. That just made my week. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
All right.
Thomas Edison, fact.
Tommy Eds.
So this cat held over 1,000 personal patents for the inventions over his lifetime. And everybody thinks about like the light bulb and like the phonograph and those sorts of things, but there were so many other small, I'll say, patents and inventions he did. A lot of what he did was improving. Like the light bulb. He didn't invent the light bulb. That's
you're ruining it.
But it's a common misconception that he invented the light bulb, and he didn't. He improved it like dramatically. But so just kind of keep in mind, a lot of times whenever we're doing like these engineers we love or inventors we love, a lot of them do lots of different things, but they're only known for like one or two. So 1,000 patents.
Fun fact about his 1,093 patents. 389 of them were for electric light and power, 195 for the phonograph, 150 for the telegraph, because he was big in that too, 141 for storage batteries, and 34 for the telephone.
How many more patents does he have than you?
1,093, in fact. He also filed an additional 500 to 600 that were either unsuccessful or abandoned along the way, which is just crazy town.
So
go ahead.
That's interesting. So can we talk about his childhood a little bit?
Real quick, fun fact. Shoot. Again. Oh boy. Shunpei Yamazaki, a Japanese inventor, surpassed Tommy Edison's record in patents in 2003. So that's a pretty long run because Tommy Eds was born back in 1847?
I would say, yeah, that's a long run.
Yeah. So let's talk about his childhood.
Okay. Luke. So good old Alva Edison. He was actually the son of a Canadian political activist, which is interesting. His mother was an accomplished school teacher who had a major influence on Edison's early life. And a lot of people heard this story that Thomas Edison was deaf in one ear and partially in the other because of some train accident. And that might be a part of it, but the reality is he had a bout of scarlet fever when he was a young child, had a terrible ear infection, and that more than likely was the primary result of him being nearly deaf as an adult.
I saw that. And didn't he also get like smacked in the head somehow? Yeah. Did you see what the head smack was? Was that hockey? I remember one of our people. Oh no, that was one of the Wright brothers got hit in the head playing hockey. But I didn't see what his strike to the head was. But that was also another big problem for his health and mental well-being.
So Good.
Did you also see that he was one of 7 children, but
Big family.
unfortunately only 4 survived to adulthood?
Well, that's scarlet fever and
Yeah.
the mortality rate back then, right? It was not
Yeah,
great.
it was bad, but still very sad. But at least, no, that's not nice to say. But,
Be nice.
well, just living up to him. Like, man, I don't want to be in his family. My
Yeah.
goodness. Okay, continue on.
1854, the Edison family moved to Port Huron, Michigan,
Have
where
you
he
been?
attended. I actually drove through Port Huron
Oh,
before. I've
nice.
never actually stopped, but he attended public school for a total of 12 weeks. Apparently, he had a little hyperactivity. He was prone to distraction and was deemed by his headmaster as a difficult child. So
Like all great inventors,
this is
he quit
another
school.
common theme, James. These geniuses of industry and invention, they're not traditionally educated. They're not that typical learn how to like pass a test kind of kid. They learn from experience. They learn from experiment. So
I
so
am
that was
not
him.
one to blame others, Luke, but I feel like I can only blame my parents for my lack of success in life because they forced me to remain in
Of
school.
course, of course.
Otherwise, I probably would have invented Amazon or
I
something, or
guaranteed you would have
SpaceX.
invented something.
So you mentioned that they showed up in Port Huron, Michigan, right?
Yep.
More accurate, and after he quit school, he began working the rails in
Working the
between
rails.
Detroit and Port Huron, which is interesting. But more accurately, Edison kind of convinced his parents to let him sell newspapers to passengers along the
Mm-hmm.
Grand Trunk Railroad line. So as I was reading that, I thought to myself, I made a fun fact, maybe Grand Funk Railroad is from Flint, Michigan. So this now makes me think that their name is a clever play on words based off of the Grand Trunk Railroad. And this meant nothing to me until I was doing this research. So then I actually did Google that, and it is true that it is because
What?
of the Grand Trunk Railroad
Are you
that's how
kidding?
Grand Funk Railroad came up with their name. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you walk away with nothing else from this episode, you have that.
Another fun fact about that Grand Funk Railroad: when Edison was 12, apparently the conductors and the cats that ran the train and they didn't like him, and they kicked him out and for what he was doing. But apparently he decided, I'm going to do my own thing. He decides to start selling or publishing his own small newspaper called the Grand Trunk Herald. He named it after the Grand Trunk Railroad. And apparently he saved this 3-year-old kid, like while he was like selling and publishing his newspaper around the train. He saves this 3-year-old kid from almost getting run over. The father of this runned over. Come on, I'm from Pittsburgh. The father of this child was so grateful that he started to teach Edison how to operate a telegraph. And by age 15, he had learned enough to become employed as a full-time telegraph operator.
Wow, that's pretty cool. What a stroke of luck, huh? To save that kid's life and then learn how to do that skill. That's really neat. Did you see that the reason they moved to Port Huron is because his dad was actually a lighthouse keeper? So for any of you who are out there, well, I mean, in addition to his political activities, if you haven't already, check out our episode on lighthouses because that's a rather interesting one. And I know Luke loves visiting lighthouses.
Oh, my favorite.
Next thing I have is the Civil War. Do you have anything before that, Luke?
I really don't. No.
All right, so the Civil War, and I love my wartime connections.
You do.
It really helped him out. And in 1863, he became an apprentice telegrapher, thanks to the young boy's father teaching him how to do all of this stuff. Messages received through it were in Morse code, right? And the telegraphs were inscribed as the dots and dashes on a strip of paper that was then decoded and read. And so this really helped Edison as well because he had that borderline deafness issue going on. So he didn't even have to worry about hearing these things. He could just read them. And so it was like his sweet spot. So then by January of 1869, he had made enough progress with a duplex telegraph that he was working on inventing, because why wouldn't you do that?
Who doesn't do that?
Yeah. It was a device capable of transmitting two messages simultaneously on one wire. So he was working on that, and a printer which converted the electrical signals to letters. And so he abandoned telegraphy for a full-time invention in entrepreneurship gig in life, because he had to have been like a baby still, and he's inventing
who hasn't
stuff.
done that? I mean, I know I've given up so many inventions that I've started to work on to do podcasting. I mean,
that's true. I've really brought you down in life.
We make sacrifices, James.
So before we move on with the sacrifices that Edison made, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume that this is General Electric Corporation, which, fun fact, he founded.
Yeah, it is not. And it is not Grand Funk Railroad either, which I thought I would get for that shout out. But we do have a couple of shout outs that we have as well. So number 1, Civil Engineer Kevin emailed into us. Civil Engineer Kevin wrote in, and he is a very, very upset about us making us, he said, but me mostly, making mean comments about civil engineers. I'm sorry, Kevin, and I'm sorry to all of you civil engineers out there making the world a better place. He had a very compelling argument for why he's making it a better place. I apologize that you have such very, very thin skin and that you cry yourselves to sleep each night when our podcast makes fun of your career. All in jest. Boo-hoo. Sorry about that, Kevin.
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to stop doing that. I mean, it's kind of our thing.
One of my best friends is a civil engineer. One of my favorite people at work is also a civil engineer.
Yeah.
And, they do very good work. It's all in fun. I'm sorry if you didn't catch on to the fun, Kevin.
Yeah, because the opposite, Kevin, is if we don't make fun of civil engineers, then we got to pick on like small children or something, and that's definitely inappropriate. We got to make fun of
slightly more inappropriate. Yeah. Okay, speaking of small children, our shout out number 2 is from PSU Brian on the Twitters. If you want to go follow him, you should do that to up his following, because that's a thing. But mostly, and more importantly, a shout out to Nathan and 7 3/4-year-old Grant. And so, Luke, you might remember these because PSU Brian is our friend that stopped by at Autodesk University, where we signed the t-shirt and whatnot for his son, Nathan. So what's pretty cool is that they apparently were listening to the podcast on the way home from Christmas Eve dinner, and it turned out to be the episode when we gave our first shout out to Nathan. So that's really exciting. So he was really excited to hear his name on it, and Grant got really excited too. So that's really cool. He says, actually, everybody was excited. It was a really cool moment. And even his mom, I can't remember if it was his mom or like grandma or the kid's mom.
I gotcha.
Listen to the podcast with the shout out. Then we did the episode on touchscreens. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out, because that was Nathan's recommendation, which was a good one, and was super thrilled about this one and giving him credit. And he even bragged during one of his virtual school sessions about how he came up with the show idea for the podcast.
Fairly certain he's probably the coolest kid at the school.
I mean, I can only assume that that is the case. But it sounds like his brother Grant is also starting to listen to the podcast now as well. So I'm pretty excited to have some new young listeners out there.
They're essentially friends with celebrities, us.
I mean, I'm not going to say that, but if you want to, I won't deny it, Luke. So if any of you have children that listen to our podcast, or if you want a shout out, if you want some amazing stickers, if you want to tell us what we're doing wrong, if you're a civil engineer that cries, I mean, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And make sure you subscribe, like, share, give us reviews, whatever you want. And we will be sure to appreciate each and every one of those. And you can always yell at your smart device to play Unprofessional Engineering Podcast. Listen to us anytime.
Makes me feel really important when it works that way. Hey, Luke, shout out to this. We are the number 6 top educational or most popular educational podcast in Honduras. Boom.
Ooh,
think about that. Okay.
Amazing.
Super long shout outs that time. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I have next where he moved to New York City. Do you want to talk about anything else?
Is this before or after the creepy facts?
I'm not quite sure. This is about 1870-ish.
Okay, well then I'll do the creepy facts.
Let's hear the creepy facts.
So unfortunately, and this may have been a cultural thing. I tried doing a little bit of research as to like if this was normal or not back then.
I don't feel like it was.
It doesn't feel like it was. So
even if it was,
there's two creepy facts, unfortunately. So the first one is in 1871, Edison married a 16-year-old girl named Mary Stilwell, who was an employee of his at the time. So there's a little business proprietary.
Little double whammy there.
She's an employee. So they were married for 13 years. They had 3 children. Marion, Thomas, and William, who himself became an inventor. Never heard of William Edison. We'll have to look him up. Yeah. And then after she died in 1884, he married another woman who was 29. Mary died at age 29, of a brain tumor. And 2 years later, Edison married Mina Miller, who was 19 years younger.
Wow.
So it just
a dream.
I don't know. It just seems weird to me to be married at that young of an age. I mean, I know people definitely got married younger back then, but 16 seems, and an employee, a bit shady.
Maybe he didn't make it to that week in school before he dropped out to learn that that's creepy.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so those are my creepy facts.
How about this for an idea for an episode? The children of great inventors. And we could see what Willie Edison did. Marie Curie's daughter, I think, won a Nobel Prize as well. Yeah. So, see what they might have amounted to. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bill Gates' kids were probably useless and rich. Good for them. That's just jealousy's talking, Bill. I'm sorry.
It is jealousy.
Yeah. So Edison moved to New York City, where he was initially in a partnership with Frank L. Pope, an electrical expert, because Edison, was very willing to admit he didn't know everything about everything, and he depended on good people to help his inventions come along. And since he wasn't classically trained, he did a lot of trial and error to come up with these inventions. So they produced the Edison Universal Stock Printer, which is kind of interesting, and other printing telegraphs. So between 1870 and 75, he worked out of Newark, New Jersey, and was involved in a variety of partnerships and complex transactions in a really competitive telegraph industry. So he was kind of playing both sides here because he was an independent contractor, and he contracted for Western Union, where he devised a quadruplex, capable of transmitting 4 messages simultaneously over one wire. So that's doubled the 2 that he had created previously. But railroad baron and Wall Street guy, Jay Gould, Gould, Western Union's rival, snatched up this invention and paid Edison more than $100,000 in cash and bonds and stocks to own this thing.
Are we allowed to define our own titles, James? Are you and I allowed to say you're the president of Unprofessional Engineering, and are we allowed to say what our own titles are?
I believe I claimed CEO to our CEO at our real jobs. So yes,
I want to be the railroad tycoon of Unprofessional Engineering.
Because you probably know more than I do.
That's the wording I have for that.
Is railroad tycoon?
Is Jay Gould was a railroad tycoon. I want to be the Unprofessional Engineering railroad tycoon.
Okay, I like that. You don't want to be a podcast tycoon, a railroad tycoon.
A railroad tycoon. I feel like that guy's wearing a top hat and he has a little handlebar mustache.
Oh, he does.
And he wears a monocle.
Oh my goodness, he's like the Monopoly Man.
Yeah, he's like Monopoly Man mixed with Mr. Peanut.
Oh, I love that. I love everything about it. Okay, so fun fact, of, just like his good friend, not really, his bitter enemy, Nikola Tesla, Edison was really good at inventing and creating stuff and changing the world. He was really bad with money. He'd often spend way too much or give way too much money away, oftentimes more quickly than he was actually making the money. If you haven't, check out our episode on Tesla, who fell in love with a pigeon. He was really bad with money. You mentioned that he married a 16-year-old girl. Also not super cool. But this is then when he moved to Port Huron, or he moved away from Port Huron and to New York, and then he built a 2.5-story laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed kind of mean, but he had his like widowed father move in to like help build this thing, and he just kind of kept this as like a place to stash his 16-year-old wife. It really came across as kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it was pretty shady. The other thing too, interesting, like you talked about our friend of the show, Nick Tesla.
Yeah.
I feel like there's this weird, like when these guys are geniuses, right? And I'm not saying, I mean, none of it's okay to be crazy. You got to work on that. But for some reason, like when people are super intelligent and inventive and creative, they tend to have a character flaw when it comes to money. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm glad that I am not very intelligent, because I am very lacking in character flaws. So that's just wonderful. Speaking of character flaws, Luke, let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this one related to the light bulb, because we're talking about Edison. We're talking about things he invented, those sorts of things. And again, he didn't invent the light bulb. He just came up to make it better. And this is LED light bulbs and the way they do their marketing. So you and I, have done a little bit of marketing in our past, for work. And, there's this thing where you have to have truth in advertising. Like when you advertise a light bulb, an LED light bulb is going to last on average. And I get their averages for an average period of time. So you can't buy a regular old incandescent light bulb anymore, right? They don't sell them. I think if they're in stock, you can buy them, but like
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you can't buy them. Like they don't manufacture them anymore. I could be wrong. That very rarely happens that I'm wrong, but
true.
So I go out and I buy a big, huge box of a medium grade. I didn't get the most expensive LED light bulb, nor the cheapest. So I get a medium grade. I spent like $40 on like a 10 pack or whatever it was. They're pretty expensive as light bulbs go, middle of the road. I did this about 6 months ago, and I'm going to tell you what, almost every single one has died on me, or they make a weird buzzing sound whenever they're turned on. And I don't know if there's something with the switches that I have are not compatible, or I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've had other people install them. I've installed the switches myself. I don't know what it is, but I feel like this whole idea that LEDs are a little more expensive, but they last like 10 times as long is a total fallacy.
Yeah, I am 100% behind you on this rant. I hate light bulbs. I think we did an episode on light bulbs. Go check it out. And I'm sure I yelled about it then too. And I hate how the little bases, some of them have little bases and some of them have big bases, and some have adapters that you screw the little ones into the big ones. I think that's stupid. But I've had the same problem where I'll get these light bulbs and it's like, you look at it and it's like, this is going to last you 2 years. And I'm like, well, that's great. And then they died in like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so it burned out in 3 or 4 months, but it's supposed to last me 2 years. So I go back to Lowe's where I purchased them.
Oh, you actually went back?
No, I didn't. I went to buy more to replace these ones. And so I look at the package and it's like, on average, like you said, 2 years. And then it's like, but this is if you're running them for 2 hours a day or something like that. Well, these were outside lights that I keep on at night. So, they're running for probably 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
What a bunch of garbage. It's
malarkey.
A scam.
It's malarkey.
It's malarkey.
Fairly certain it is.
Malarkey. All right, Luke.
Sorry.
Thank you for that. Where are we headed next with our friend Edison?
I feel like we need to talk about, I have a list of 4 inventions that he was involved with, or was...
I think people want to know. What was he involved with, Luke?
So we already mentioned the one. So December 1877, Edison developed a method for recording sound, the phonograph, as it was called.
Yeah, the phonograph.
This invention relied on a tin-coated cylinder. So if you've seen these, like everybody thinks it's like a record. It's not. It's actually like, it looks like a toilet paper tube, a big one. And so it's a cylinder, and then the tin is wrapped around on the outside, and it has 2 needles, one for recording the sound and another one for playing back the sound. Fun fact about the phonograph, the first spoken words into the phonograph's mouthpiece were, "Mary had a little lamb." Did you know that?
Really? No, I mean, I bet he's probably looked back and was like, man, I should have said something way cooler than that.
Way more profound.
Yeah, Mary had a little lamb. Okay, that's good to know. What else do you have, Luke?
The Quadruplex Telegraph. You mentioned that one. This was the one that the railroad tycoon stole out from Western Union. While
you look, can I talk about the light bulb a little bit?
Please.
And this is just like something I found very interesting. We go into excruciating detail in our light bulb episode, so go check that one out. And we also talk a bit about this in the Nikola Tesla episode. But Edison, after he went out to, I don't know, something in like 1878, a bunch of other people were talking about really sensitive instruments that could be used to measure temperature and heat emissions, things like that. And that somehow made Edison's brain start going, where he made the bold claim that he was going to make a safe and inexpensive electric light that would replace the gas lights that were out there right now that were kind of dangerous and whatnot. A bunch of leading financiers, knowing that Edison was this great inventor now, right? He had this amazing reputation, including J.P. Morgan, as well as the Vanderbilts, established the Edison Electric Light Company and advanced him 30,000 smackers for research and development of this sweet light bulb thing. And Edison proposed to connect his lights in a parallel circuit by subdividing the current so that, unlike the arc lights, which were connected in a series circuit, the failure of one light bulb, like a stupid Christmas tree, would not cause the whole circuit to fail. All of these people out in the world were like, this dude is nutso and it's never going to work. But sure enough, our friend Edison, along with his 26-year-old assistant, Francis Upton, a graduate from Princeton University, were able to make this sucker work just as he said it was going to. Of course, if you listen to our other episode, you'll find out that Francis Upton got 0 of the credit for the work that was being done.
Another fun fact, that Edison Illuminating Company that got the investors
about that one
became GE.
General Electric.
Who knew that? And General Electric, I mean, they literally make everything. Like
they do.
TVs and refrigerators and microwaves and literally everything has GE on it.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, what else did you have for inventions?
This one I didn't know. I was kind of surprised. In April 23rd, 1896, Edison became the first person to project a motion picture.
I saw that. I didn't know that either. Isn't that crazy?
No idea he was involved with motion pictures.
Yeah, super cool.
Next one, Edison designed a battery for the self-starter for the Model T for his boy Henry Ford.
Yeah, they were actually boys too, right?
They were. This was 1912, so it was a little bit later.
Yeah, apparently Henry Ford was a big admirer of Edison. I'm guessing he was probably a good bit younger than Edison, just based off of the time frame here. But yeah, big admirer. They were good friends, and all for the Model T. Check out our Henry Ford episode, why don't you?
Yep.
Well, this is an
episode shout out.
Man, that just shows how influential Edison was, though, right? How many things that he worked on. Yeah. Did you have any other inventions in there?
That's all I had for inventions, and then I had a few kind of like weird things.
Okay, so let's see here. Yep, you said he started lighting steamships. The Columbia was the first thing that was using his light bulbs. In 1880, he made General Electric. In 84, his wife Mary died, so that's sad. He remarried in 86, so he made it 2 years. He married a 20-year-old this time, so at least he upped his game there a little.
Yep.
And then in 2009, right before the Henry Ford stuff, Edison was actually the principal supplier of batteries for submarines and electric vehicles, such as electric automobiles, before they fell out of favor. So that's pretty cool stuff. And then he died, so that's less cool.
Real quick,
man.
Here, and if you have anything.
Up.
we talked about it a little bit. So Edison and Nikola Tesla were in this huge, long-standing rivalry about alternating current and direct current. There's actually a movie, I think it was just this past year, called The Current Wars, or maybe it was like a Netflix series.
I remember you mentioning that.
It was something called The Current Wars. But essentially, these cats were like really like pretty like at each other's throats. I mean, we obviously know who won this. Obviously, because
all of us are the winners.
Tesla didn't win. But one of the most unusual things. I'm sorry, vice versa. I said that backwards. Wow. So one of the most unusual things that, and cruel at the same time, the way that Edison was trying to convince people of the dangers of alternating current was he did a public demonstration, and I wasn't able to validate this, but I'm all for like sharing information that hasn't been validated. It's, you know, it's kind of what
makes the world go round now.
It is what makes the world go round. But essentially, he electrocuted a circus elephant in 1903.
That's so terrible.
At Coney Island, and the elephant had a name. His name was Topsy.
Topsy.
So basically, he electrocuted this elephant to show how dangerous alternating current was, because direct current doesn't kill you. Alternating current kills you. And yeah, so it's kind of crazy that they did that, but you know,
so bad. Poor Topsy. A couple fun facts that are less sad than that one. And this is one of my favorites because it shows that not everything somebody does, even if they're this smart, is a huge success. For 10 years of life, Edison focused most of his brain power on a magnetic ore mining venture, which basically was a total disaster. So he bought up all of these mines all over the place.
Okay.
And he was trying to come up with this way to magnetically pull the ore away, like easier than the process that they were using, and never really got to where it was a point that was useful. And then the money and ore kind of fell off, and so he gave up on that one a bit. And then fun fact number 2, this is a 2-for-1er. He executed his first patent for his electrographic vote recorder on October 13th of 1868 at the age of 21, which is totally reasonable. And his last patent, this is kind of neat, was for some sort of apparatus for holding objects during the electroplating process.
That's cool.
So, just a whole spectrum of stuff.
That voting one, the one that you mentioned, that first one, they actually didn't like or want an electric. The politicians didn't want the electric vote recorder because it was counted too quickly. They wanted people to be able to change their minds. During the voting process. So
wasn't that interesting?
That's a little fun fact. So Edison died on October 18th, 1931 from complications of the diabetes.
Diabetes.
Yeah, Wilford Brimley wasn't around then to help him out. But he died in West Orange, New Jersey at the ripe old age of 84 years old.
That's a pretty good run.
That's not bad.
Especially back then, right?
It's a really good run.
Yeah, well, we've had a pretty good run too, Luke. Hopefully all of you think so as well. If you'd like to tell us that we've had a good run, you want to give us some ideas so that we can keep this good run going. If you just want some stickers, if you just want to say hi, or if you want to tell us to stop picking on those poor civil engineers, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Until next time.
See ya.